You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 290 of East Central's favorite show. I'm Jeremiah Morrell. Today I am joined by executive video producer, audio engineer, aficionado Zach Burcham, making us sound good and look good. And my forever co-host is at my side, Mr. Dakota Davis. What have we planned for today?
Today's episode features the return of Mr. Brad Klopfenstein. If you've been listening to the show for at least 5 years, then you're going to remember that name. And then we also have the first time appearance of Mr. Jim Merritt. Jim is a former state senator. We're going to be talking to him about his career in the state senate, what his future has to hold at the very end. We're going to be talking about some other things. And we'll just say this. You don't want to miss the end of the show, so make sure you stick around and listen to all of it.
All right. With that, man, I'm out of practice. I haven't been in this chair for a week, and I've already changed screens and forgot what I'm supposed to say. This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you, other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. Just did a little bit over 20 minutes on our Patreon, Dakota. And what did we cover? We covered my travel woes, which really weren't that bad, but we can make them sound bad.
We talked about all kinds of juicy travel bits. You told some really nasty stories about Aaron Ewert. So
I did spill the tea on Ewert.
Only over there. Then we talked about the Boat Sport and Travel Show too. But patreon.com/bosshogofliberty, or you can go to bosshogofliberty.com and click the support here button. That is where you can go to support the show on a monetary level every month. They start out at $5 a month. We go all the way up to $50 a month. And if you donate at $50 or more a month, then you get a shout out at the front of every show. And those folks are Miss Christy Avery from all the way in Fort Wayne, our favorite Norwex dealer, Mr. Jonathan Phillips from Buick, Andy Moore Buick, GMC and Fishers, also a candidate for the Newcastle City Council. And then Mr. Anthony Meyer, who is a trucker, making sure that this country keeps running.
Special shout out to Christy. I saw her today, dropped off the silent auction item. I was the courier for the big box of magazines that were donated to Rex Bell and the Wayne County LP, and they will be available at the silent auction she's putting on next month. So good luck. Happy bidding. If you're into vintage semi-clad politicians in magazines. I don't know what the hell they are. There's a Gary Johnson edition, and there's a Donald Trump edition, and every other Playboy magazine from like a 3-year period before Dakota was born in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So Godspeed. So they're not for me, but they're for somebody, and there they are. Who knows? Should be fun. And I know there's going to be some Alps Brau stuff in that side too.
I was going to say, Dakota, styling and grooming was different back then.
It's actually funny. I wasn't gonna say this, but I am now. She sent a picture of the tote, and like the top magazine on the tote was a lady, and I looked at it and it said Gabby Reese, and I was like, "Is that Laird Hamilton's wife?" So I looked it up and I was like, Laird Hamilton is a famous surfer, and I was like, oh my God, it is Laird Hamilton. I'm used to seeing Gabby Reese. She's like in her
60s,
50s now, late 50s, with Laird Hamilton and their 3 children, like as a family on Instagram.
Okay. You might want to bid on that. She had it going on.
She was she a professional volleyball player?
Yes. I don't know.
Yeah, she was.
I have
quite an athlete.
I have literally no idea, but I'm sure she's very talented. All right. So thank you guys for the patrons for continuing to help us out. Getting this show on the air every week, except for last week, which is my fault. Brad, it's been 5 years since you've graced the presence, and we're in a brand new building since then.
This is amazing. I didn't think it had been 5 years, but it was in Dakota's attic or the room upstairs. I didn't realize that I was on so early on in the Boss Hog of Liberty franchise. I'm glad to be back. Thank you very much.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah.
You have been rolling out Alps Brau.
I brought presents. You want me to pass them out?
Yes, please. You have been doing a slow release of this product for probably 2 to 3 years.
I acquired the trademark 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, January. So 25 months. And so here, I'll just give the story. So Alps Brau here. This was an old Fort Wayne beer. It was the 95th anniversary beer for Scent Liver Brewing Company out of Fort Wayne. And they launched it to great fanfare. Clearly, it was designed by the marketing department because it has a very nice label to it.
It is a spectacular logo.
Yeah.
So, it very much reminds me that we're in the high country of Indiana here, near the headwaters of almost every river. You're at one of the highest elevations in the Alps of Indiana, right here.
Yes, we are. Exactly. I mean, yes, the valley, the Blue River Valley could be on this label.
It could be.
So
that is I mean, these are the headwaters of both the Flat Rock and the Big Blue River are right here, which come together and make the driftwood that flow into the White River that go on down the way.
I don't think that water was used in the brewing of Alps Brau.
This is probably straight out of the Maumee.
It could be. It probably is. So possibly the Fort Wayne Municipal Water Supply. So yeah, let's open them. Give it a taste.
I'm very excited. The silver can.
It is actually. So it's
That's good.
the
does taste
label,
good.
like a lot of craft beers. It's now a sticker that goes
awesome.
on there, but it's got some opaque portions of that sticker, so you can see the can, and the can actually makes some of the label. So it's good. So anyhow, so this beer came out in 57. Like a lot of breweries at the time, they faced some competition from the bigger national brewers. They took on some investors that didn't go so well. So the Scent Liver family spun the brewery off to the employees in 61-ish. And then the employees ran the brewery till 73, and they couldn't make a go of it. So they shut the brewery down in Fort Wayne. And then Peter Hand Brewery up in Chicago picked up the brands and brewed them until 78. When they went out of business, the brand died.
So in 1978, I assume it was another casualty of the blizzard of 78.
Had not thought about that, but it's very possible that they could not make the deliveries, and then it messed up their cash flow. So yeah, so I don't know the whole story. I've had a hard time finding out a lot of information about Peter Hand. Yeah. Fortunately on this, I've met a whole bunch of members of the Scent Liver family, and they are as excited as can be. They came to our launch party that was up in Fort Wayne. Christy Avery was at the launch party up in Fort Wayne. I gave her a little care package that's going to be auctioned off. So it's been a cool journey. So I've met a lot of neat people along the way. I interviewed a bunch of different breweries until I finally came up with 2 Toms.
So and I'm sure Dakota has a full list planned, but how do you know that what you're brewing today is consistent with what it was when it existed the first time?
So this would not be exactly what it was the first time. So the recipe is lost to history, but Tom Carpenter, who's the brewer, he owns 2 Tom Brewery, and they're the ones that brew this. Tom did some research and went with a style like they were brewing at that time, but then he gave it just a hint of craftiness to make it somewhat modern for today's drinkers.
Yeah.
That's smart. Yeah, real smart.
So
It's not overly hoppy. But
No, it's not.
It's very refreshing, almost a citrus flavor. Not overpowering, but it's between a light beer and just a hint of citrus.
I think its official style would be a Vienna style lager. So it's somewhat of an amber, but yeah, one of my requirements was like, all right, we're not going to overhop this thing. I want people to be able to drink it and enjoy it and have more than one of them in a setting. So
I was going to say I could drink multiple of these. But that's something I can't do with usual craft beers.
right. So, and it's at a decent price point. So I think the brewery's selling it for $9 a 6-pack.
That's a very
wow,
fair price point.
Yeah.
And so tell us about the scaling up. So you identify a brewery, and then I know that one of your past lives is in the alcohol distribution world.
Correct.
And people like Senator Merritt over here made the world very complicated for trying to take an adult product to market.
Now, that was 1933. People say I was in the Senate at that time, but I really wasn't.
What's it like because it's not like you can just go sell this directly yourself to somebody.
No.
I assume.
No.
What's the process to getting this in people's hands?
So my wife likes to say that this is largely a figment of my imagination and that I pulled this out of my butt to make it happen, but it happened. So at first I got the trademark. I went to a graphic artist and I said, all right, I've got this brand. We've got this old logo. We need to crisp this up so that
who has the trademark? Where does that even come from?
So it was available.
Okay. All right.
So
this is a very dark underworld of the beer community. Somewhere in Chicago, you acquired it.
I acquired it.
All right.
So yeah.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah. So it was.
It wasn't the waters of Fort Wayne.
No, it was not. So anyhow, but it's like, all right, I need to have a digital logo. And again, this is a brand that nobody remembered. It went out of business for a reason. It's not like there's a whole big club of people saying, I can't wait till they bring back Alps Brau. So we had a little party at my house. I'm like, all right, I'm going to need some seed money to get this going. And we had like a dozen of our friends come over and I go to hold the trademark. I've got to be selling something. So the first thing I did, I had a bunch of little refrigerator magnets made up and I go, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a party. Everybody's going to donate $100. You're going to get a limited edition magnet. These will not be available after tonight. They're going to be numbered on the back so you know what they are. And this money is going to get me a website. It's going to clean up a logo and we're going to get at least a little bit of merchandise to sell so that we maintain the trademark. After that, we started going around and just talking to different breweries and said, here's what we've got. There is some history in this. So like Upland does Champagne Velvet and does pretty well with Champagne Velvet. There's others that have tried to bring back like Sterling and it failed miserably. So I don't know all the.
Is Falls City a reboot?
It is. But Falls City does not make anything close to what Falls City was. It's very hopped and very different, and they've got a number of different styles.
But these brands have come back, I guess.
They have come back. So, but the one thing that I learned was any brewery that has brought back a brand, it might not be their most interesting beer, but it is easily their best seller. So, and I knew that with my connections, it would sell. So we talked to a lot of breweries that were interested, but they were just too small. They didn't put it in a can. And I mean, I'm selling nostalgia as much as I am the beer inside. The beer is great.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
But a lot of people are going to try it because they're like, oh my gosh, Alps Brau, that's that old Indiana beer. So I had to get somebody that had a canning line and had at least some capacity to bring this on. I talked to a couple really big brewers and one of them laughed and just said, no. The other one said, great, commit to doing 50,000 cases out of the chute. I'm good. I'm not sure I'm that good though. So I talked to several and I'd actually talked to Tom from Two Toms like a year and a half ago. And at the time he was mildly interested, but we never really followed up. And then he reached back out to me this fall and said, hey, I think I'm to a point where if that brand is still available, I'd like to give it a try with you. And we met with him a couple times. Him and his wife are fantastic.
And it's Fort Wayne originally too.
It is from
ties
Fort Wayne.
Directly back into that community.
And so I really wanted to be with somebody from Fort Wayne, but that certainly narrows the market. But yeah, it's been great. And in the meantime, he'd opened a tap room up in Fishers.
This Fort Wayne hate is just too much to take. You know, Fort Wayne and Orlando, Florida have the same population, right? They are the same size communities.
Yes, they are similar climates as well. I believe.
Listen, if Mickey Mouse had moved to Fort Wayne, you couldn't keep the people off 469. That's all I'm saying.
Is the Two Toms that's in Fishers? Is that off 96?
It is. It's so right off of I-69, just west. It's in front of the big Menards, if you're familiar with it. So so it's great. So we had good response. We got TV, we got radio on it. The only area where we stumbled, we miscalculated the demand. And
you needed that 50,000 number, didn't you?
We needed the 50,000 because in 5 days we've effectively sold out. And so we're going to be out for the next 3.5 weeks waiting on the next batch.
Wow,
to be
that's
done.
really impressive.
Thank God you didn't
awesome.
launch a bourbon, Brad.
Oh yeah. That's what the
Would have been 7 more years of waiting.
That's what the plant in southern Indiana is for. They go, yeah, this mash bill is pretty much the same.
Yeah. So so I've been thrilled by it. So we've got a Facebook page, obviously, and our website, and I'm trying to keep people updated on where they can find it because we're still getting some deliveries out from people that committed ahead of time. But like there was a liquor store in Plainfield that committed, and they sold out in less than a day.
That's insane.
Their delivery came on Tuesday, and by Wednesday morning they were out. So we'll figure it out.
So the guerrilla marketing has gotten this first wave claimed off the shelves instantaneously.
It has. So the challenge is going to be once everybody tries it once, getting them to come back and buying it for a second time. I mean, there's some novelty to it, and the novelty's selling on the front end, but it's great beer. So I think it will continue to expand, and yeah, it's been a fun journey for sure.
I really like it. So I'm a Miller Lite guy, and I drink Miller Lights all the time. And I always try to, like, throughout the summertime, especially, like, I'll grab a small case of some type of craft beer and keep it in the fridge for, like, mowing the yard and stuff. And, I'm definitely going to be picking up a case
This
or
is
two.
totally a lawnmower beer. And
Oh, yeah.
Good news is I wasn't sure how many people were going to be here tonight, so there's more than one for each of us. So,
Spectacular.
so don't feel like you got to nurse this one.
Well,
It's his last can.
it's a
It won't be available for 3 more
Don't
weeks.
feel bad, but it's his last
it's
can.
a boating beer. It's a lawn mowing beer. It's great. I'm really hoping that the folks in our audience is going to tell the Blue River Tap House across the road that they should probably reach out to the Alps Brau people.
Now, are they brewing themselves, or do they just have a long list of beers?
They are going to do a very select amount of brewing themselves in the basement, I believe. Maybe very, very small, just enough for themselves.
Is that the Scambries that are starting that?
I believe so. I'll have to double check.
I used to sell beer with them.
But your Facebook friends in common. I know that.
Yeah.
But I know they're going to have a lot of guest taps in there. So
I'm all about guest taps.
it's a perfect synergy to me.
It is. So, yeah, obviously I am born and bred in Indiana. I found out, my mom has told me in the last couple of years, I'm a 7th generation Hoosier.
Wow.
Which it's hard to get to seven generations since the state was founded.
You know,
You've got to be prolific breeders.
The great part about this beer, other than the taste, is that they've got a wonderful promoter, and it's all about promotion. It's all about branding, and he's got a good start, and he's going to be sponsoring some podcasts in the future.
Very good. You were on the side of a race car, were you not? In the 85? Attempting to qualify?
They didn't qualify.
There's only been qualify.
How many cars have not qualified for the 500 in the last 10 years? I was on that one.
But you got a picture of the car, right?
I did. Yeah, I got a picture of it.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
We were at Daytona on a car this last weekend. The Boss Hog Liberty was on an ARCA car.
Yeah.
Brayton Laster from Greenwood? I believe he's from Greenwood, Indiana.
Wow.
Small family team, and they were doing little micro sponsorships, and he went down and ran. So he ran at the ARCA race, which Frankie Muniz, Malcolm in the Middle, was also in that race.
Yeah.
But I think Brayton finished 25th or so.
And the winner was from Anderson.
The winner is an Anderson local. So
Yeah.
a lot of Hoosiers in that event.
Is there an ARCA race in Indiana?
Winchester.
Okay.
I believe they race Winchester still. And Salem, I think.
I bet there are a couple.
Their calendar changes. It's not like there's not total date equity, but I know they race the dirt track at the Illinois State Fairgrounds, and I believe they run Winchester and Salem.
Okay.
So yeah, you got a lot of ARCA opportunities here as well. So yeah, we're big racing fans around here too, Jim.
So am I.
There's nothing we don't touch. We've had Kent Benson's been on this show, a Newcastle native. Basketball, baseball, football.
My chiropractor's a former racer. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So, I bleed Indy 500 and NASCAR, and it's good to see NASCAR has a lot of Hoosiers.
Oh, yeah.
In the Cup races and whatnot.
Chase Briscoe of Mitchell.
Chase.
And, Justin Haley, I think, he's up north.
Need to get some of those guys back in an IndyCar. That's just my opinion.
Next year, you got another Chase that'll be in an IndyCar, in a very fast IndyCar.
That's true.
You're going to make a patron, Andrew Bowman, a little upset with those words. He's the big NASCAR guy.
Sorry, Andrew. Back.
It's okay. Well, get this beer sponsorship launched well enough. I mean, maybe you'll be on the side of a little 500 car or an Indy 500 car this year.
This could be the Alps Brau, Boss Hog of Liberty from the Alps Brau studios.
Ooh. A neon sign back there would look spectacular.
I wanted neon sign.
It would look spectacular.
I looked into those. Heck, they were like $800.
Yeah.
And very few people make them.
Yeah.
Manufacturing them are very difficult.
And you know who's buying them now are wedding parties. Like you'll get one. My brother had one made, but you'll get one made for your photo booth for a wedding because everybody. It's a big production when you get Brad. You know this. You're newlywed. You got to get the backdrop and you've got to get the neon sign made up with the last name. A lot of extra letters in your name, so the sign would have been cost prohibitive. I'm sure.
No, it'd be
Clop.
Yeah,
Clops. Yes, the Clops.
The Clops.
Just get like 2 or 3 made and then sell the other 2. And you probably make enough money to pay for yours.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Because people, I mean, like, I know every race fan, every time they walk into a bar that's got one of those Miller, Indianapolis Motor Speedway neons, they're like, ugh, I'd like to get my hands on one of those. And if you meet somebody that's got one, you're always impressed.
When I was in the beer business, I'd always get some hillbilly that would come up to me and say, they look good in my home bar. Why would I want to put it in your home bar? There's like 2 guys that drink beer there. I need it someplace that has more eyeballs in it.
Well, I could show you the receipts of an Aaron Ewert that would show you that he probably earned himself a Busch Light.
And that's always possible.
Sign. Yeah, there's a handful of people that probably deserve it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we wish you well.
Thank you. I'm excited about this.
So, currently available in how many locations right now versus what we're scaling up to?
Yeah, so it's always going to be available on draft and package when we have it from both Two Toms locations.
And where are those locations?
There's the one in Fort Wayne, and I forget the name of the road. It's on the northwest side. The other one is on 96th Street
in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, Fishers
right
line.
near I-69.
Yep. We've got.
So this is the I-69 beer.
It kind of is. Yeah. So that I've said that at least initially,
Anderson and Marion, they're coming your way.
It will mostly be available within about 30 miles of I-69 between Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. Although I did see that we are in Mishawaka at a place. There's a bunch of places in Lawrence just because I live there. So everybody I know, like, here, pick this thing up. We will be in Total Wine and More out on this next round once we have supply. But I'm a little worried that a few of these big places that go through a lot of product, we don't have enough to supply them at the moment. So that's coming as we gear up.
Gonna have to get this down at our Elks Club, Dakota. Have a conversation with the powers that be. I know we got a lot of Guardian on tap down there, but
yeah, I would just be happy with bringing some cans down to the Noble Wine and Spirits in Newcastle.
We could make that happen, I'm sure. Now, I've got it in the VFW there in Lawrence, but that is purely selfish because on Wednesdays they have every beer for $2. So I will go in and support them every Wednesday. Say, hey, thanks for carrying our beer.
I'm a Friday night elk when I'm not camping.
Yep.
That's the go-to. All right. So your driver, tell us about your driver today, Brad.
So I was coming out here and my driver, he said he'd chauffeur me, former state senator. Actually, on 2 different occasions, he was my state senator based on redistricting and me moving and him moving. But Jim Merritt was a state senator from 1990 to 2000, I believe. 2020. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I've noticed the older I get, I drop decades and I'm not even 40 yet. So I totally understand.
So, yeah, but 30-year career in the Indiana Senate and now is launching a bid for governor of the fine state of Indiana. and he's
right
also
on this show.
He is my chauffeur. So, actually, Jim has been a good friend of mine for quite some time. And
tell him how we really kind of got to know each other.
Well, we first met because when I was running the Indiana Licensed Beverage Association, we cut a check to the Indiana Senate campaign committee, and it was a nice check. It was like $2 or $3 grand.
Yeah.
And we'd handed that thing off, and it was gone. And like 10 days later, I get, what did you refer? An unhoused individual showed up at my office. And I'm like, this is odd. This guy's going to hit me up for money. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And he goes, I don't know exactly what to say or how to do this, but he goes, I found something on the street that I think belongs to you. What would you have found that belongs to me? And he pulls out this check for $3,000 made out to the Indiana Senate Republican caucus.
They just threw it right in the trash can. Apparently, apparently Republicans require checks with more commas.
So
I said, I bet this guy would serve Yingling illegally.
Exactly. So then I started chasing down the chain of custody because we gave it to who was the old sheriff from Angola, real big guy. You know who I'm talking about, state senator.
Meeks.
Yeah. Bob Meeks. So we gave it to Bob Meeks, and Bob said, well, I gave it to Jim Merritt. He was supposed to turn it into somebody. So that led me to Jim. So then I called Jim. I'm like, Jim, you're my state senator. I've been meaning to call you. I need to get to know you. But I go, I've got a check that my understanding is you had possession of it one time, and now I've got it again.
Now an unhoused individual has given it to me.
Yes, now an unhoused individual. So I actually gave the guy $20. I'm like, thank you very much for giving this back. You could have just thrown it away or done something else with it.
Well, that'll cover the gas coming out here.
Yeah. I didn't give you $20. I gave it to the unhoused individual.
Why I'm reimbursing you.
So I listened to Rob Kendall's show this week, and he's not very happy about gas money. So
no, he's not.
He's a grumpy pants when it comes to paying for roads.
Yeah, we have an honest disagreement. I consider it user fees.
Same, but full disclosure, I build roads for a living, so I'm a big fan of pavement.
Jeremiah has a conflict of interest in this department.
I'm the libertarian who likes stop signs and paved roads.
3M, right?
And I don't like paying tolls. I'm kind of with you on this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're all user fees.
So that was initial Klopp and Jim meeting. Really, we'd met before, but it was a great run for 30 years, and I enjoyed it. I had some pretty good success with different pieces of legislation, but you just don't shake your love of public policy and public service overnight. And I retired in 2020, and I'm still not done with it. And I like thinking in big rooms. I like trying to solve big problems. And I see we have a lot of those in state government. And so I write op-eds, and I'm on with Rob, and we're starting a new podcast called Merritt in the Morning. And Alps Brau is going to be the sponsor.
I've been meaning to talk to you about this name. Where does Klopfenstein come into this?
It doesn't.
All right.
Okay.
Smart man. This is how he was a state senator for 30 years.
Listen, you had your shot at a governor's and lieutenant governor's race. It's the next generation's turn, Brad.
Yeah, it is. 63-year-old Jim Merritt, next generation.
How many votes did you get when you ran for mayor?
Not enough.
Well, no. I'm just trying to think if me on a statewide ticket got more raw votes than you did running for mayor.
That's very good.
Might be close.
That's probably a very good possibility. I did not have a good day that day.
Sorry about that. I voted for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
Lived in Spiceland.
Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of things that Dakota, with being at Duke, I got a lot of interest in nuclear power being reliable, and we need really, since there's such an assault on coal, we're not going to power things by candlelight. And nuclear power is safe and reliable and green, and it's the next generation of power. And I'm interested in those issues that take a lot of brain power and a lot of money, and in solving those issues are, I think, something that we need to continue to think about and solve.
Believe it or not, energy policy is the third rail of Henry County politics.
Is it really?
It is. Yeah.
It has completely upended and changed our county government and every single county elected official over an 8-year period.
Is this because of wind power?
Because of wind
Yes.
power.
And wind
solar.
and peaking plants.
I have a consulting
wind
company.
solar.
I have a consulting company. It's called JWM Consulting. If I could rename it, I'd rename it Third Rail Politics Consulting, because I enjoy those issues, because they're hard to solve. But when you do, you've accomplished something. And I like that. And so I know Henry County, and there are other counties around the state that have really tussled with who owns the land and who doesn't, who gets paid, who doesn't. And it's a big issue.
That's over the course of the 5.5, 6 years that this show has existed. I would say half of our time has been spent talking about how to handle living together.
Well, there's a very good reason that there's a windmill in the logo.
Yeah, if you look at the logo,
we've talked a lot about wind energy on this show.
And it's rezoning. It's finding ways for agriculture and larger population centers, and realizing that larger communities are going to grow out, and finding ways to make zoning work. And to figure out how, when we plug something into the wall, that it still works. Right.
And, Jeremiah, the interesting part about wind turbines is that, the people who are environmentally sound, that really believe in anti-coal and everything. Well, wind turbines themselves they can't be
they don't grow out of the ground. They are manufactured some way.
Well, yeah, and they can't be reused. There's no recycling of those, and they have to go to the landfill.
I'm sure there's some stoner out there trying to make those things out of hemp, and then they're going to brag about it.
Yeah, I guarantee it. Yeah.
So they're environmentally sound over here, but over here they're not. You can't recycle them.
Yep. Yeah, so we do have a couple of large solar installations that have happened here in the community. We now have a solar moratorium. If you go to the northeastern part of the county, right in Summit Lake, you can see a number of wind farms that are over in Randolph County. So you can just peek over and they're there. And we have one high school that has about a 2/3 size scale single windmill that's up. But yeah, it's talking about energy policy. That hits very much close to home with the listening audience.
Yeah.
I will say Indiana has some of the best farm ground in the world. I have a personal problem taking ground out of agricultural production to put solar panels. I mean, wind, at least the turbines are kind of above the crops. But yeah, when you have 1,400 acres or something or more.
My brother would be mad if I didn't say so. My brother maintains solar farms.
Well, they should go on tops of buildings.
And he would say that that farmers also will not lease or sell them good farmland for solar parks. He said a lot of them. He has to drive, like right now, he drives a 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive with decent tires on it, because a lot of the land, like there's one over by I think it's kind of near Mountain State Park, and it's a mud hole when it's, and so he's like, we don't get good land. We get crappy land that they don't want to deal with getting their tractor stuck in. So they lease it to us, and we put a solar farm
about
in.
That.
So it's one of those things where it's not,
it's more nuanced.
It's nuanced, but there's not a lot of, I don't think there's too many farmers that are taking like, oh, this is a prime field I can make money on farming and turning into a solar farm. But it's a lot of, here's the crappy corner of a field. I'm going to see if I can get a solar farm put there. And in what he does, all of his are attached to municipalities who are then directly getting the power, which is also nice. That was one of the weird things that people didn't like about the solar thing or the wind farms here, was we had no idea where the electricity was going to go. It wasn't going to Newcastle. It wasn't going to Henry County. It was going to go to Ohio or something, or Illinois, but Iowa. Yeah. So some of those are. But some of them, my brother's like, you should see the land I have to deal with.
I was pretty windmill agnostic during the whole debate. And then we had a good friend of the show, Betsy Mills, and she was running for a state representative. And she was also on the Henry County Council. And she brought up a really good point that if we want to expand the community and bring more people here, bring more housing here, then we need to have land that is readily developed for housing communities, for potential job growth and stuff. And there's not a lot of very sparse land in Henry County already. We were already going to be one of the most populated areas in the state with wind farms. So it was like, okay, maybe this area in particular isn't the best fit, but that's not to say that we take wind out of the equation for generating electricity long term. Totally. But you just have to be more smart about it.
You can power, and
right.
Probably southern Indiana, if you put a small modular reactor in a place like Crane, and it's not a naval base, crane, and or you could place it somewhere on the eastern side of Indiana and power the whole. I mean, it's just amazing how much power that is there.
Purdue,
and you could bury them. I mean, and they're safe, and
drop it between Versailles and Madison in the hunting ground, the old Army munitions base.
Oh yeah, proving grounds.
The proving Jefferson proving grounds.
Jefferson proving grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the smaller. So, like you said, the smaller reactors. I think that Purdue University is going to be doing something where they're going to be phasing out a coal plant and putting in a small nuclear facility there. Mm-hmm. That'll be really interesting. See everything that they're able to do, the things that they're able to show the public in general about.
That'd be a wonderful.
That's the problem, right? That especially it.
Well, the movie and all the different incidences, which are 2 or 3 that have people don't think they're safe, and they are. Right. And the nice part about it that a small nuke could be made at down in just west of Evansville. There's a maker down there. There's a builder down there, and Babcock and Wilcox, and so. This is prime time for us to look at the future, because coal plants are going to become unused, and they're going to be they're a perfect place to put a small modular reactor. Legislature did pass a bill last year that gave a push to that, and I think you're going to see more and more from state government.
You do have and I didn't anticipate us spending the night talking about nukes, but here we are drinking Alps Brau and talking nuclear power.
Mm-hmm. The more Alps Brau you have, the more you start talking crazy.
I think we do have one relatively close to the state up in Monroe, Michigan, right on Lake Erie. There's already a nuclear plant.
Lake Michigan, Cook plant, and that actually. I'm sorry, we're getting into this, but that actually powers most of Fort Wayne and most of Northwest Indiana and. Northeast Indiana. And you can see the power lines for nuclear power plants are much different than just the regular electric lines. And
do they glow?
But most of Fort Wayne is powered by nuclear power from the Cook plant.
Alps Brau. Powered by nuclear. Nice. Nukes in a 12-ounce can.
So we're talking about this because you served a lot of time on the utilities committee.
Yeah, I chaired the utility committee for probably 15, 20, a long time. And I was always looking for the idea of how we can, because there was so much push against coal and Indiana needed coal so much, that I invested a great deal of time in nuclear power. And the nice part about these small nukes is that they don't need the water supply. Cook is on Lake Michigan.
Because it needs the cooling.
Yeah, and these small modular reactors don't need that.
Very interesting. So what other issues were your targets or your wheelhouse issues when you served in the state Senate?
Well, I wrote the safe haven law, which you can drop your baby off at a hospital, and you've seen probably on Facebook they've really turned that into a great thing where they have the special boxes at a hospital.
Got one just down the road here at our firehouse.
Right. That all started at Community North Hospital, where baby Ephraim was left about 6 feet away from the emergency room and froze to death, and I wrote the bill from that. And you probably know the Lifeline law, where if you're under 21, you're at a social event, somebody's overserved, you call or text 911, and we have texts all 92 counties now, and you stay and cooperate, and you have immunity. And this last session, I tried to push the legislation that allows immunity for the person who needed medical attention, because if you're in a situation where I don't want to. Let's just let my body sleep it off, and then you don't wake up. You don't wake up, and so I wasn't successful this year, but we'll continue to work on that. Those 2 pieces of legislation, and I led the effort in 2017, writing 24 bills, of which 17 became law regarding addiction and recognizing naloxone and having it available over the counter. And so spent a lot of time on common sense issues that are kind of counterintuitive because, drop my baby off without the adoption and all that, but we want to save the life of the baby.
You can figure the rest out later.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody's been drinking and we're not going to arrest them with the lifeline law, and so I tackled big issues, and I really enjoyed my 30 years, and a lot changed in those 30 years in the state of Indiana for the good. Now I've put a lot of attention on just talking about issues like the governor last summer talked about that we have we don't have the people, the manning tables in state government. We're cut to the bone, and so they had a jobs fair last summer in the state house, and maybe even the state office building. What I would have done is I would have had a Lean Six Sigma program, and I would have said, we have 49 agencies that are cabinet officials. Let's try to work this out where we share employees, that we make lemonade out of this lemon, and try to make it and cut government, be more proficient, more efficient. I'm really interested in an overhaul of the Department of Correction. We're building a prison up in Northwest Indiana. We're rebuilding Westville correctional facility. And when all that money was sloshing around from the federal government, the legislature had a budget in 2021 where they funded $400 million to rebuild this prison. Now it's up to $1.2 billion. And I've been paying attention. It's all about warehousing human beings. There's nothing about transitional health care. There's nothing about having a reentry, mental health. And I'm concerned. I feel like being outside the Senate, I can look at these issues in a common sense way, and I'm really enjoying kind of looking back and looking forward to see how I can help with my experience and make things better here.
So that's another issue that Dakota and I have been talking about for 4 years on this show. Yeah. Is that we just built a new community jail facility.
There were 18 under construction in the state of Indiana at one point.
And Sheriff John Sproles was on this show 4 weeks ago, and he said, "Guys, it's already full. We had the ribbon cutting last year, and we've already filled this jail."
And we had for the primary, we had the prosecutors, and like they behaved or to kind of talked as if there was space in this jail to even be more aggressive. And then all of a sudden, the sheriff's department guys come in, they're like, "It's full. We're done."
They were talking about like, and we were like, "Are you just becoming way more aggressive in who you're arresting?" And they're like, "No, it's just bringing people who were housed in other facilities. We were paying the state or we were paying other counties to house these people in their jails. And then, or we had outstanding warrants that we decided to, okay, we have more room in our jail. We're going to start bringing more people in that have warrants." And it wasn't even that the policing got more aggressive.
The theme that we heard during the process where we raised our taxes to pay for the new jail, and where we were increasing our headcount was, hey, we've got all these level 6 felons that the state said, hey, they have to come back and stay at the county. Yep. So we filled our jail with them. We had to pay to put them on the outside. This community had some federal lawsuits where some people got hurt. So then the feds came in and said, you're going to figure it out. You're going to build a new facility or else we're going to take over. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's a story that's repeated across many of the 92 counties. But you're telling me, hey, we've got overcrowding at the state facilities. We've got county jails that are brand new that we just literally have. The pavement is just dry in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. And now we're busting at the seams there. It sounds like there's more than just a, hey, we need warehouse people problem. We got to stop arresting people or we've got to change the culture.
Yeah, we got to change the culture. And I wonder, this Sproles, I wonder if he has a good relationship with the Department of Correction. There are a lot of things that come to mind when we're talking about this. It's a really good topic to talk about because the more we prepare inmates for the outside, they're paying their debt to society. So we're tough on crime. But if they can have some sort of, if they're in good health when they get out, if they have something to go get a job with down in Madison near Clifty Falls, Grody it is a big part. Grody Corporation is a big part of the women's prison there. And so there's got to be continual, remaking. And I think, Department of Correction for the next governor has to be a place where it is just completely overhauled. And the things have changed.
Jim, let me ask you. So mental health and mental health treatment, a number of the people that are in the jails they're not as much criminals as there is some sort of a mental health problem. I hear this from my wife in the schools, and even the schools are wrestling with this to where there's a lot of kids that need help and treatment that are beyond what their parents can do. And then those kids, they get shuffled through the system. Next thing you know, they're out on the street, and then they get arrested for something. And jails are there to incarcerate people and punish and hopefully rehabilitate. But there seems to be a lack of treatment for those that are really mentally ill. It seems like there's at least some discussion about that. Is the state ever going to come around to realizing that you've got criminals and you've got people that have mental health issues, and we need to treat those differently? Well,
before you came along, we had all these hospitals
right here, Newcastle,
Newcastle, and just a variety of places around the state. And then the federal government started pushing down on us. Evan Bayh was governor at the time, and we started closing all these hospitals. Well, DOC, Department of Correction, is the new mental hospital. And Klopp, Brad, you had it exactly right, that we've got some real situations here. And in jails, I always look at that kind of a pass through on your way. If it's, that maybe you're held there. And when you really get down to it, law enforcement and how we arrest people and how they go through the system and possibly pay their debt to society. This sounds boring, but it's all about data. And like for instance, in Marion County, I think that jail that we just built is probably full, and they're having a hard time, with labor and manning and administering the jail itself. And, a lot of times in Marion County, I don't know about Newcastle, but a lot of times in Marion County, it's just a number. It's not a person. It's just an email where you just check the box, and there's so much crime, and the level 6 is a problem. Then you put your thumb on it. But a lot of times, the person who's been arrested doesn't even have a face-to-face with a judge.
Right.
And we've got some real problems on judging what is crime and what is not. And we want people to be safe, and we all can be tough on crime. We just have to be smart on crime. And you gotta work with data, and we'll be a lot safer if some smart people get a hold of the system.
Well, Detective Pierce was saying, 80% of the people in our jail are on the front end of seeing a trial, and then they're not even through the system yet. Yeah.
Right,
we're just that far backed up.
Yeah, the mental health part came up for our local city government, and we're talking about the county as well, because I believe in Delaware County they just announced a partnership with IU Health, I think, for a crisis center where people could go in. I think they could stay for it was 47 and a half hours, and then they could walk out, turn around, and go right back in. Mm-hmm. But it was to give them some place to kind of get triage the intake. And they mentioned during that, I'm not sure if it's every day, that Sproul's, the local sheriff's department at times will run 4 to 5 transports a day trying to get people to mental health facilities where there's space, and it's usually not anywhere nearby. It could be the other side of the state. And if we could just have a local place, and Newcastle is a unique thing. We had a state hospital, and they tore it down, and they built the prison where the state hospital was. We literally swapped a mental health facility for a state prison. Yeah.
Well, and we understand much more about mental, and when Dakota, when we were growing up, the song was "The White Coats Are Coming to Get Us." Aha, aha, and it's completely different. And mental health is health, and what people like myself are trying to do is, a broken brain is just like a broken arm. And we've got a mainstream healthcare, including what we call regular health and mental health. It's very important. And in Stark County, which is right in Northwest Indiana, the sheriff understands mental health issues so well that he jails the worst of the worst. And that's a terrible term, but extreme mental health problems with inmates instead of in Westville. And so it's a problem for the ages, and we just have to make sure people pay their debt to society, but do everything we can to make them productive when they have finished their sentence, and that that will make us all safe, including that person.
You've also, Jim, been one of the early adopting Republicans to being open to some cannabis reform in Indiana.
Yes, sir. I do. And, the idea of running a bill, and I'm glad they did it. They had the hearing on decrim with small possession. That's all fine and everything. But being in a farming community and hemp has such a big future in construction materials, in CBD oil and in the medical end, but also automobiles, which Newcastle right here. And there's a company named Flexform up in Elkhart that they import jute, which is a rope. A rope. Yeah. That kind of material from Bangladesh and France, because they can't get enough hemp. And so, hemp in World War II, they built ladders, they had clothing, they had all sorts of things made out of hemp. And, I believe that the state of Indiana ought to have a commission so they can look at the whole situation, and then we can have standards, and we can start off this product. You talk about alcohol regulation. We all learn from that, and it ought to be much more straight line, and it can be good for the state of Indiana. And I don't want people to think, well, Merritt's for cannabis, and we're going to have somebody hotbox out in the front in the parking lot, and they're going to come in and they're going to be smelly in a restaurant sitting right next to me. It's not about that.
Our current governor was the first guy in line to buy Sunday beer.
Yeah.
Do you not think he'd be the first guy in line to buy weed at the cannabis shop?
We haven't seen him buy Delta 8 yet.
Well, we don't know. We don't know. And, but it has to be.
Because it's a hell of a photo op.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Without the mask on, getting a pizza. Yeah. He's had several
Yes,
photo
that's
ops.
perfect.
Yeah. But, there's a heck of a future in front of us.
He could go to Brown County, but Zach and I couldn't.
Yeah. I was going to say he was at the Hobnob down in Brown County, staying at his house there that I couldn't go camp in.
Yeah. Yeah. But it has a heck of a future here. We just got to have our hands around the whole thing so that people are safe and people understand that what's right and what's wrong. And, it's here.
I was in Los Angeles last week. They're mostly a functional society.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
80%.
Maybe LA is not the best.
I rented a car in LA last year, and it smelled badly. Somebody had just gotten out of it.
Well, they're not smoking. It's
Michigan
all in
is probably
forms.
a better example.
It's in Tic Tacs. It's in
gummies.
It's gummies.
It's in everything.
They're not smoking. Very few are actually smoking.
I don't know why
anything.
anybody would smoke it anymore.
I don't either.
Nostalgia, just like maybe
like
with your Alps Brau.
Maybe we can
in the
have
60s.
Yeah, maybe we can have cannabis beer.
I mean, one thing I mentioned on the show before is the smoking part I don't get because it smells. You can smell it.
It's like ditchweed.
I run in the mornings and I can tell who's awake and baker.
Zach, how many continuous days of running a mile are you at now?
Oh, I have to look.
He's a whole mile.
But I've done I did 1,200 last. I'm on day 419 in a row.
419 days of at least 1 mile of running.
And most of those were like 2 to 5, 7 something. Yeah. But yeah, I do question the people that are trying to be covert and smoke it because it carries like nobody's business. And I was like, oh my gosh, so it's here already.
Well, wouldn't you agree that it's here?
Absolutely.
Let's regulate it so we know what people are consuming.
I'll be honest, when we had the sheriff's candidates in here, and you'd have to have a backpack of it for us to even care. They don't even care. They've got better things to do.
Yeah, and we just need to know what's in it.
Yeah.
And outlaw what's the bad part, because there's a lot of bad pot out there.
Don't drive. Don't go driving around.
We just can't get crazy with the regulation.
Dakota feels the same way about heroin, honestly. He just wants safe, rare, and legal heroin, Clear labels.
Jokes, everybody. He's telling jokes.
Just jokes.
Reasonable regulation.
Yeah, because you got places like Illinois and there's other and also Colorado that have taxed the crap out of it, and
people 100%.
People are buying from the black market. Still,
we
more
got a
than what
buddy
they are
who
the
knows
legal
the first ramp off of I-70 when you're going over to Illinois.
Is he running for mayor?
Yeah,
I don't know how I couldn't place a bet on the Super Bowl in California, but I could in Indiana. But you can't buy any sort of a cannabis product.
Yeah,
it's
upside down.
How in the hell Indiana got at the front of the online gambling game is a real testament to the power of persuasion with certain folks in the General Assembly. Yeah.
Well,
and you know who was influencing me? Hammer Nigel, specifically.
That's true.
Hammer.
There's
he educated me on it.
Strong history in the state of Indiana with gambling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
with the riverboat casinos.
Yeah, that's true. And the technology is incredible. That you have to be here. And
I have sat in the Cracker Barrel in Richmond, Indiana, on US 40. And had to hold my phone just perfectly so that I'm not in Ohio.
They got the Indiana Tower
to be able to get the Indiana Tower to be okay to make my bets.
No, it's funny. I learned a while back. I am not a good gambler, but I also learned it's good to be the house. So I have invested in Churchill Downs, and it's done very well.
Yeah, I'm a conservative person, so it's probably surprising to people that I do support the regulation of cannabis. But I was on that committee, and I was all in. Because it's happening around us and it's here, and we might as well get our piece. Yep. Piece of the pie, financial pie.
And you worry about stuff what's in it. Usually when it becomes legal, then there's some kind of chain of whatever, and it inherently will be safer if there's like these people are growing it. There's some level of light supervision or whatever, and that's going to market, and they're legally attached to it. They're selling a product. They're not going to lace a product that they're slapping their label on.
Well,
Joe who's selling it behind the gas station doesn't care.
Yeah, I have a friend who just lost his son. Yeah. He thought he was buying Xanax, and he bought fentanyl and died.
And so so it would inherently become more safe as it is a legal entity as opposed to like a black market product.
Bad business to kill your customers.
Well, you look at best practices from other states, and there are some states that have done it well.
There aren't a lot of states that make a practice of arresting their tourists, but we hear on I-70 constantly. Jim, somebody's passing from Oregon to New York State along I-70, just a fine tourist, and the next thing you know, all the contents of their pockets are on the dashboard of their car.
Jim, I heard the governor say that he was waiting to see a state that did it right so we could learn from them, and he hasn't seen a state that's done it right yet.
That's just an excuse. Yeah. He's waiting for the federal government to legalize it.
And then we're first in line for the photo op.
Yeah. So we've talked about so far things you've enjoyed working on and the things that you're proud that you got passed through. Are there any things that you wish you had gotten past, or do you have any regrets from the time that you spent in the state Senate?
Well, I think about the only regret that I had when I was in the state Senate is I didn't work statewide enough, and this idea of running for governor has always been in my bailiwick, and there's always been a line with obviously Mitch Daniels, who was a terrific governor, and Mike Pence had a national following and so it was always jammed at the top. But I don't really have any regrets. I spent 16 years as the caucus chairman, and that's elected by your caucus. So right next to pro tem, it's the second in charge. And I don't have a whole lot of regrets. You know what? One thing that I really, really enjoyed was constituent service. And when I would get an angry email, I would print it, and then I'd go see that person. And that was probably the most fun I had as a state senator because people
same story Tom Saunders.
I was going to say we've heard that story before. Tom Saunders is our District 54 state representative who's retired now, but he told that same exact story of where he would get an angry letter or an angry email, and he would go, "Well,
Look, we'll see.
Let's just go knock on
Right
their door.
down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't think that we invest our time in the detail. I had 23 bad emails, and they're all the same written. And I printed them off, and over 3 or 4 weeks, I stopped on my way home from work and saw the people. It was an environmental issue. But, the issues that kind of got out of hand, they're just very, very few. And I don't ever dwell on the negative part.
So what you're saying is to get Greg Pence on the show, I need to just send him a really nasty email and have the return address this address.
Not too nasty.
Dakota,
The state police
Dakota, let me just ask, is that just checking the box? Is there something about Greg Pence that we really want to know?
I just want to talk to him. I'd like to know what he sounds
I want to
like.
know that he's a real
I
person.
want to know what his voice sounds like.
I was on a first name basis with David McIntosh. I was on a first name basis with Mike Pence. I met with Luke Messer in Washington D.C. multiple times. I have never been in the same room with my congressman. I'm not what's changed.
No,
I'm easy to beat.
We find out he's been in town in the paper on the pictures the next day, and yeah. I've never actually heard his
Unless
voice
you're
except
going
like
to
a
a
radio ad.
GOP luncheon,
Yeah, that's the only time he's
not going to see the guy.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Anyway, we appreciate having the FaceTime with you.
Well, I'm going to be back.
So quickly. This is awesome. All right, so our pet issue here, and it's because Dakota and I have been involved in a number of local elections over the years. In rural communities, it is pure hell to recruit candidates in a community where you have straight ticket voting. We had one countywide Democrat on the ballot at all. In Indianapolis, I know you're very familiar with the fact that it swings the other way in communities, and it makes it difficult for people to actually run, to raise the money, to look people in the eye and say, hey, I want to run for office. So two things we talked about after, once again, what happened in our local election last year. Do we need to have straight ticket voting in Indiana at all? We're one of about 6 states that still do. Or do we need to have party labels on anything below a state house seat? Do we actually need to say, you know what, this candidate for surveyor, or this candidate for sheriff, or this candidate for county commissioner, county auditor, does it matter if they're Democrat or Republican? Or do we just say, hey, run who runs and we'll see what happens?
Yeah, I served as county chairman of Marion County for a couple of years, and so I learned a lot, and I was sued by the Democrats and for early voting, and I always felt like you could get it done with one day. And with technology coming on, and it's safer these days. But I still would love to have election day on election day, and not for a month or two. But the straight ticket voting is something I would be very supportive of changing that. But when you talk about the labeling, I live in Hamilton County now, and in our school board race, 2 conservatives knocked them each other out. And I think you probably disagree with this, but I think we ought to go back to the days where the Republican, Democrat, and Independents, Libertarian, or whoever put their candidates up in the May primary, and then they fight it out in the general. And the reason why is because I think we know our candidates better. I think it gives us a reason to get to the polls, and you're not canceling each other out for a liberal.
The challenge you have in that case, though, is that if you're in a community like current Senator Braun, his family came from a predominantly Democrat community. We're in a predominantly Republican party area here. So if I wanted to get elected to anything, even though I'm at my heart and I'm a dues-paying Libertarian member for over 10 years, if I want to win an election, or if I want to have an influence in an election, I either need to vote in the primary or I need to run as a candidate in that party, whether or not I agree with them or not, because there is literally no chance anybody other than those folks that are picked in May are going to be on the ballot.
Yeah.
And the problem is that you will have very, very high level, well-researched, well-prepared people that'll run in one of the minority parties. And by the way, Don Rainwater pulled more votes than Woody Myers did in Henry County in the governor's race, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the minor parties, they are not going to have any fighting chance in the world of beating the Republican in rural Indiana.
Right. And, I really thought that the Libertarian Party was going to do better this last 2022 election with the statewide. I don't know why they didn't perform well. Maybe the bar is way too high for libertarians and we need to lower it. But the reason why I mentioned school board is because if there's a vacancy on the school board, then the state
board picks it.
Yes. And I find that to be difficult.
Do you know what happens if you're a minority party candidate and your person leaves? The county commissioners choose, not the county chairman. The county commissioners will make the appointment for you.
Believe me, I've had many discussions with Mark Rutherford as well as Brad, and it would be a great addition to the political scene if the Libertarian Party was stronger.
Yeah, I'm not advocating just for the Libertarians. I'm advocating for once again,
Greens.
I'm advocating for the Democrats in this community. But we've had so many people come through over the history of the show where we have a primary series and we have a fall series. So we've covered we cover municipal and others. We've had 5 cycles now, and you can just see it happening every time. And then what happened? And then people get cagey enough where the top level Republicans like Greg Pence or like our current state representative who has not yet made an appearance, even though we've talked, they hide. They won't come. They won't interview for the job because they know the only thing that can happen is it can go wrong, and I'm not going to come talk to you. Yeah. So we're building a system that we are building a system that has consequences. That's where it's at.
Something. I could point to at least 3 people that are elected officials in Hamilton County that are Democrats through and through, but ran on the Republican ticket because they knew that was their only way to elected office. Mm-hmm. So then all of a sudden that dilutes the Republican brand as well as the Democrats are still getting elected.
Mm-hmm. You're a Hamilton County Republican on paper. That's all it is.
But to play devil's advocate for a minute, I understand Jim's point because I'm
the devil.
Well, you're the one that spent 30 years in the state senate. Lord knows I tried.
Guilty.
The way that I understand what you're saying though, in a more pure system, the way that it would work is you go to the ballot box and you see Republican or Democrat, and I align with Republicans. I know neither one of these people's names. I'm a Republican, so I'll pick the Republican.
It's that trust.
Right.
And that person probably has been vetted, and that's your brand. And as well as the fact that, the school board is always kind of the poor stepchild. And we need to do a better job because that's where all the decisions are being made. And people thinking that the legislature is going to do something about CRT or going to do something about one thing or another about schools, it has to happen at the school board level.
Right.
And
good luck legislating something you can't define.
Can you explain?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Can you explain Diego Morales?
I'd rather not.
Not gonna go there. No comment.
Has he been on the show?
Smart.
Diego was invited.
Oh, was he? Okay.
I don't mind having a label. In Henry County, if you go vote, our machines, the first option is straight ticket. If you do not choose straight ticket, you get an error screen telling you, hey,
that's wrong.
You're skipping
You left this
something.
page
Big red X, go back.
And I don't mind either way. I'm kind of like, I go through the ballot, and it's Newcastle, small town, small community. I know people, so I'll go by there. And if I don't, chances are I know who they are. If I don't know who they are, I might look at political affiliation. But they should at least be forced to go through the ballot and vote individual races as opposed to just blanketly. I mean, we had a guy who ran and he openly just flipped the party to have a chance to get on the ballot. Mm-hmm. And he had somebody tell me, he's like, no, I can't vote for you if you switch parties because I can't vote for anybody that has that letter behind their name. And they knew him and they would have voted for him with a different letter behind that. Literally the only reason he lost a vote was because of the letter. And so I think that level of partisanship is insanity when you literally
for a city council race.
Yeah. In some cases, or this case, this guy was running for a county office. And so it kind of plays into the level of partisanship where like I've gone to every city council meeting that I could, except I think I missed like 3 in the last 4 or 5 years. There's not any partisanship in what they're doing. Like there's one, it used to be all Democrat locally because we were a big UAW town or used to be. That's fading. Now there's one Republican. If you went in and just sat through all the meetings, you couldn't figure out who the Republican and who the Democrat is. They're all worried about the same thing. They're worried about potholes. They're worried about railroad crossings that fall apart and the railroad can't come and fix them, or the arms don't come down. We're dealing with that locally now.
Our Democrat mayor was quoted in a news article for saying he voted for Donald Trump.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean,
well, the issues you're talking about, the countywide, that's just a little different than porn in the classroom. You know, the issues are at the school board level right now. And there are a lot of parents that are upset.
I'll make the trade. If you take the party labels off city council and county, I will, we can have Republicans and Democrats for county, for school board. I will make that trade today because I think our communities will be better off. The talent pool of the people that are running these communities with $20 million budgets, vastly better if we just take the labels.
We had two candidates came in here for a race. One of them came in with binders of information. The other one was late because they lost their cat, and they were literally chosen at the last minute to fill a seat because the guy who was the incumbent was no longer coming back, and that guy won, and the person who had all the preparation, all the information lost. And it's school. I like school board. Our school board's a lot of like former. Ours isn't Republicans and Democrats. It's educators versus jocks. That's our school board. I'll be honest. Our school board is educators versus jocks.
Basketball versus
we
teachers.
We had a guy who got elected who didn't complete one form, didn't do one questionnaire, didn't show up to one thing. But hey, guys, varsity basketball player, Newcastle High School, and now he's an administrator in that same school system. So I really want that. So how that goes, school board. I can go talk to, I know every member of my school board. I don't care what their political affiliation is. I'll go talk to them. I'll go ask them. I run into them. My mom has coffee with one of them. So, but just the team part. I'm just.
Do you think most citizens dig that deep into a school board candidate?
No. But
it's the most important.
Do they?
Position.
Yeah, but so do I want that person? I don't want that person just then picking a letter and saying that person is going to have it, because there's lots of tax abatements are big things for schools, because schools give up money when there's tax abatements, and the school board has to vote for those. And so that's kind of a pseudo political thing. But some of that stuff, like the CRT thing, hasn't come up locally. That's not an issue for us. So to have a state issue turn into suddenly a local issue,
that makes it
go
difficult.
ask them.
Yeah.
Well, we do appreciate the listening tour you built today by coming to Boss Hog. listening to Henry County's issues.
Yeah. The thing is
our tales of a local community.
Jeremiah, this is what I miss. I really miss being out in communities. I was a congressional staffer, and I drove Congressman Hillis everywhere, and I miss the factory tours, and I really like that part of politics. I do.
We're probably getting to the point in the show where you need to find out, you start checking your phone, see if there's been any developments. But is there anything we've left off at hot topic issues that you want to make sure you cover?
No, I thank you very much for having us. This Merritt in the Morning, and that's what the title is.
Okay.
I'm real excited about it because we're going to talk about common sense issues. And we have shared time tonight, talk about common sense issues. And that's what people care about. And I think that's kind of left the scene a little bit. We've got 3 candidates for governor, all good people, but I don't know anything about them.
You're not forgetting the Henry County candidate, are you?
Who's that?
Jennifer McCormick.
Huh?
Jennifer McCormick.
Oh, she's from Henry County.
She's right here.
Okay. Well, she's unannounced, but I guess she's running. But I think it's very important that we talk to people who want to lead us, and they grasp that third rail and tell us what they think should be going on in the future. And a lot of times people that are running for office, all they want to do is raise money or spend money. And, I think this election in 2024 is just incredibly important, for the future of the state of Indiana. And should we have another pandemic, are we ready? And I think the idea of cannabis, I think you need to grab that third rail and bring it home, because it's for the health of Indiana as well as, the financial health. And so, when I hear we have a $43 billion budget, and that has grown incredibly. That's concerning that we need the right person in the chair, and the next, I don't know, 18 months, 19 months is going to be very important for the state of Indiana.
Very good. Do you anticipate the next governor being more or less powerful than the current governor?
I believe the next governor of the state of Indiana, if they use the bully pulpit and they use the idea of communication and transparency, they'll be more powerful.
Been a lot of executive orders by this one.
If I have anything to do with it, that is not the way it goes. And that's another thing that we need to talk about with this pandemic. I think they had 19 executive orders. And that communication with the legislature, who are going to the grocery store, they're going to the gym, they're going to church, and what they're thinking. And as a former legislator, executive orders drive me crazy. And that I will, should I enter the race, that will play a large role in how I run the state of Indiana, and very few executive orders, because I believe the legislative branch is the place for public policy.
Very good. Well, we appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
Zach, what have we forgotten?
Oh, I don't know.
He didn't get any beer.
I don't drink yet. You don't need to see that.
That's the one thing Zach abstains from.
Yeah.
I know we went over it, but I thought it'd take a taste.
I died listens, but Connor Daly, congrats on his surviving the Daytona 500. That was
fantastic.
Good. IndyCar racing is almost here. I can't wait. They've refreshed the yard of bricks, so I need to go get a springtime visit. I want to know where the stockpile was. I'd like to get a hold of one of those old ones. I know that they have them somewhere.
I'm taking you to the Brickyard Crossing this year.
I'm gonna have to wear my waders.
Your golf shoes are gonna be hip waders.
Apparently, there's some in the creek over there. They're not much else. The weather's deceiving. It's winter, but it feels like spring. So I'm still running. So that got brought up. But other than that, no. Thanks to everybody for coming.
How soon until you camp the first time?
I'm going to be going. I'm taking it to Tennessee, the camper Tennessee for spring break. So in March.
Well, it's due to snow because the sectionals are coming.
That's right.
Yeah. Tuesday
snow.
Yeah, we're looking for a Tuesday snowfall. That's always when it's. Yeah. I would like an actual and I don't blame the meteorologist. That dud of one we had a couple weeks ago that was supposed to be real bad. The slush storm, because it all came down. It was just slush, not rain. I had the snowblower ready to go. I want like a 6 or an 8 inch.
I saw in the news this morning that we are below average by 12.8 inches.
Yeah.
The snowfall.
Now the basketball team, Newcastle, are they good this year, or what's the record?
I have no idea.
Oh no,
I haven't been to a game.
Call school board member.
Largest and highest. Yeah.
Adequate. They're doing okay. Newcastle did have a wrestler won a state championship.
Yes.
There's a freshman wrestler who won. So that's been the talk of the town the last week.
Man,
126-pound weight division.
42-0 and took out a multiple-time state champion on his weight. And he's a freshman. Wow. And I should know his name. Tylen's his first name, and I can't remember his last name.
We need to have him on the show.
But yeah,
he's
just a stout kid.
There's a lot of Newcastle podcasts that have.
I believe he and his brother both went. He and his brother both went to the state finals. I believe there were 3 Newcastle wrestlers that went to the state finals. Man, I should know his last name.
We'll let you Google it while we shift over to Brad.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the beer, Brad.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on. We're not going to shill beer.
We're not going to wait until the next time you launch a beer brand to have you back out.
I
you
love
guys
coming
are both
out
welcome
here.
anytime.
It is about 50 minutes door to door for me to get here, and
to be driven here.
To be driven. That was when Jim said he wanted to drive. I'm like, this is awesome. I can have more than one beer while I'm there.
And for anybody, I've had half.
Yeah. I remember one time I had beer with Jim like 10 years ago. He goes, this might be the last beer I ever have in my life, which I don't think you held firm on that, but.
So I've got a lot of friends that after a night of drinking tell me they're never drinking again, but then it comes right back.
Yeah.
But I enjoy coming out here. Thank you very much for having me. I can talk lots of things: radio, politics, beer, business.
Got it all covered.
Yeah, we didn't even.
Your day job is with the chamber.
I run the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce. We didn't even talk about that.
Good things happening in Lawrence, I'm sure.
Great things happening in Lawrence. Come to Lawrence. Lawrence seems to be the epicenter for places that still have a supply of Alps Brau.
Yeah, and tell everybody who your new member is.
Moondrop Distillery. Yeah, Moondrop Distillery in Fortville. So they just joined, and the Lawrence, part of our manifest destiny, we were apparently taking over Fortville and McCordsville as well.
What's up with all the
they're going to be enclaves of Lawrence in no time.
Yeah. Hey, we take all comers. If you want to support Lawrence and you want to market to Lawrence and you want to join the Lawrence Chamber, let's have at it.
Very nice.
The second Chamber of Commerce president to be on the show in a row.
Who was the first? Or who was the last one?
Chris May.
Was he the Chamber of Commerce president?
Isn't that his new job in Rushville?
Yeah, he is he's going to be the executive director of the Community Foundation.
Oh, the Community Foundation. Okay, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I thought he was in the chamber.
Boy, you really pay attention to your own show, don't you?
It's been a few weeks.
Have you guys had John McCain on?
No, but he is on my wish list.
Okay. Good man. He's done a good job.
John's a very good friend, personal friend, and he's just not been on yet. But soon. We'll get.
Let me know when that's happening. I'll bring beer.
You have your right back up. Dakota, what do we need to know?
Not a whole lot. This weekend is the Deer and Turkey Expo at the fairgrounds. It's one of my favorite times up at the fairgrounds at the Boat Sport and Travel Show, second only to the State Fair. I can't go. This is Jackson's birthday party weekend, so we made up for it last weekend. I would encourage everyone to go, though. It's a great time. Take your family.
The people watching, if nothing else, is spectacular.
Yeah, well, that's
How
true.
crowded was it?
Oh, very.
Because that event has been,
very crowded.
especially Turkey Fowl weekend. I do well with crowds, but oh my God,
Get there
you
as soon
cannot
as it
move.
opens. Get there as soon as it opens.
Popular.
It really gets crowded like after lunch. Like it seems like most people will go to lunch around Indy around 11 o'clock and then head, or 11:30, and then head to the fairgrounds. So it really starts picking up around noon. But you can get there at 10, and it's not that crowded from 10 to noon. And within 2 hours, if it's not crowded, then you've seen pretty much everything.
How many campers had signs that said, "Please don't use this toilet"?
Oh, that was a thing. We went to this RV show like last month, and it was a thing that they had like marked off the toilets. And I was like, it was like one of those things like you go to Ball State and it's like in your lease it says you're not allowed to like burn furniture or put a couch on the roof, and you're like, this is there because they had to put it there. And the toilets were all marked.
I didn't notice.
Do not use.
I didn't see it. Like, I'm sure that they must have been marked if you guys saw it, but I didn't pay any attention.
That was, we noticed that after a
I
while.
wasn't looking at the bathroom. So my son would walk into a camper and he would look and see if there were bunk beds, and he would go, "No, can't get this one."
He would reject them.
Yep.
All right.
So Tylen Thrine.
Tylen
State
Thrine
champion.
is your state champion.
The one other thing, Newcastle, the bridge is finally open, everybody. The long national nightmare of Henry County is over. Our bridge was closed down in like September. It was supposed to be open in November. It opened last week.
Is this the one that we came across?
Yes.
That's a great bridge.
Fresh.
The fine people at HIS Constructors have completed the project, and everybody is very happy.
Not sure what
Everybody survived.
I've heard some mixed reasoning for the delays, but it's finally over.
There was a Buick
amalgamation.
There was a Buick that tried to make it Dukes of Hazzard style
Not
without
Dakotas.
the bridge being there, and that set them back a while.
Oh my goodness.
But
We can't have nice things.
as somebody
Jim.
whose in-laws live just on the other side of that bridge, it got old over the holidays, so I'm glad it's open.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for being a part of the show.
Thank you.
Apologize for our tardiness. It's been 2 weeks since we've had an episode. That won't happen again for at least a couple months. With that, we say thank you very much, and we'll see you next Thursday.